My name is Bria, and this is Rise with Bria if you're new here. So, our setup today is a little bit different, if you couldn't tell, at least from my other thumbnails. If you're new here, my setup is different today, and that is because we are going to be talking about books. It's a little bit of a switch up from what we normally talk about here on this channel. This channel is about having conversations around emotional health and well-being and wellness, and talking about all of these philosophical questions that we might have. Lately, we've been talking about confidence and having confidence in yourself, and self confidence specifically. So, in that conversation arose a kind of smaller conversation about being proud of yourself. Last week, we talked about that in the video before the card reading. And we talked about what it means to be proud of yourself and not seeking external validation for, your internal joy. um and with that, we have, our hobbies that we love to do and the things that we find pride in. One of those things for me is reading. And I just have always loved to read. I think I even talked about that in the video of, being proud of myself when I was a child, reading or finishing a book that I picked out from the library, and just being so proud of myself. And that feeling has not left me. That feeling is still with me today. And so with that conversation, I thought to myself, I felt so strongly about how reading makes me feel that I want to pour more of that into this channel. And if you haven't seen my longer content and you've seen my shorts here on YouTube, a lot of that is surrounded by my reading. I do a lot of reading just wherever I can. I have two small children, two toddlers at that. Um, and so, I'll read in the pickup line for school, or I'll read while my kids are coloring, or there's just so many different avenues that I've found as I've gotten older, as I've come into like a different phase in my life of how and the many ways that we can incorporate our hobbies as moms and just as parents in general. So, if you relate to that, stay tuned. We will talk more about those things in this separate series. But today, I really wanted to talk about what I'm reading and what I have read so far this year. So, my reading list so far, I think it has been about 10 books, which a lot of the books that I have read so far in 2026 have been some of my all time favorites that I have discovered. Okay, shout out to RF Kwong. But we're going to go ahead and get into that list. So I decided, instead of talking about all of the books that I've read, because not all of them have been, my faves, although I have read my favorite books already so far this year. We're starting out on a high, which is great. So I definitely want to just talk about those. And I'm going to start out with the R.F. Kuang books. So I think the first book I read this year, I don't know what happened to the cover. Sometimes when you have a hardcover, the sleeve falls off. And if you have children, you know that when the sleeve falls off, it's just gone. It's like balled up somewhere, colored on, or something. So I have just been looking at the spine of this book, and we have catabasis. This book, if you don't know, is about a student at Cambridge. I'm getting, because I read Babel after I read Catabasis. So I'm like, Cambridge or Oxford? Okay, but she's at Cambridge. Let me just make sure. She's at Cambridge, and her professor dies. It's not funny, but her professor dies. She's in a super intense magic program surrounding philosophy at Cambridge, and her professor dies doing magic, and he goes to hell. We just are assuming that he goes to hell. I The whole time I was reading the book, I'm like, how do we? Are we sure? Like, was he like a terrible or something? But no, we're sure that he went to hell. So she went to go follow him to retrieve him from hell. I'm not going to give too much away. This is just so free and so like just, cliff notes. But she follows him to hell, and basically her colleague, he was like another student there with at Cambridge with her, and they were both studying under their professor together, but they were kind of rivals. He follows her too. Like, so they both go to hell together. And they're basically going through all the levels of hell to find their professor. And along the way, she's trying to figure out, the real reason why she wants to follow her professor to hell and retrieve him, and what she's going to do. Like, she had a plan, but just the philosophy, just the footnotes in the book, the like there's just a lot to chew on in this book, and I absolutely devoured it. I loved it so much. It's very meaty, and there's a lot of information, which I appreciate. I love philosophy so much, hence this channel. But RF Kwong, she's got me this year, and I'm really debating if I want to go and finish up the Poppy War series, because I read the Poppy War, but I want to reread it because I read it a while ago, and it was like so much information that it was overwhelming for me. But I feel like I've just enjoyed her books this year so much that I feel like I definitely want to be diving into more of her work. She is just so smart. And yeah, so that is Catabasis. And then I read Babel. Robin. The characters in this book, there's so much depth to them that I just feel like I even told my husband, I'm like, this book should be studied in schools, because she covers so many aspects of not only history, but just cultural disparities. She covers colonialism in this book surrounding the school Oxford and the school of language there, that is Babel. If you're debating if you wanted to read this or not, please read this year. If you are not interested in reading about a student following their professor to hell, read about a student with his friends and the complexities of their different racial backgrounds. It's so good. It's so good. Please. All right. So one book that I don't have in my hands that I rented from the library that I absolutely love, and I think I'm probably gonna buy it because the artwork actually, like, I want to reread it because I just enjoyed it so much. I didn't want it to be over. So this is like a one-off book that Brandon Sanderson has, and it's one of his like secret. But if you read Tress of the Emerald Sea, this is like not in the same world at all, but it's just like a one-off book. It's not in a series or anything. It is like Hoyd is narrating, and it's like Hoyd's stories, I guess. If you don't know anything about Brandon Sanderson, this is probably going to be very confusing. So this book, I haven't even said the name. It's Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. I'm just gonna put a picture of the cover here so that you know that It's just as beautiful as the cover looks. It's everything that you would expect from the artwork, and there's artwork within the book as well. But not only that, Brandon Sanderson does a very good job of just building out a world. And this book wasn't even that big. And the world building that he did in such a small amount of time, like, I felt like I was there. I felt like, and also, it wasn't even, well, I don't want to spoil anything, but like technically it seemed like two different worlds that he built out. So I could imagine these two places, but also after reading Trust of the Emerald Sea, I'm like, okay, I need to open my brain up to be ready for anything. And that's exactly what you get with this book. You get just beautiful characters, beautiful side characters, even though I've seen people say that, like, oh, the side characters aren't very fleshed out or whatever. I didn't really need that. I did appreciate that in Trust of the Emerald Sea, but in this book, the main characters are so whittled down that I feel like I got everything that I needed as far as like characters in this book. Um, and of course, you have Hoyt's funny commentary, his funny narration. So I guess to get into what the book is about, it's kind of hard to explain, but you have two main characters. You have the painter, and then you have Yumi. Yumi is basically the chosen one in her world. She lives a very traditional life. She basically has to um, carry out these rituals every day to um, she's like like the one in her community. I don't really know how to describe it, actually. Okay, so she's like the one in her community who is like close to the gods, I guess, and close to the spirits. She is like uh yeah, she is that person to her people. And so she has to carry out these rituals every day, baths. Like, she doesn't bathe herself, she gets bathed. She doesn't feed herself, she gets fed. She has servants. She lives a very like traditional life, or not even traditional. It's like ultra like spiritual life. And then Painter, you go into his world, and God, it's so different. Like, he lives in a world of darkness. Like, there is no sun. They have one star. It's all dark. And he is a nightmare painter. So they have these nightmares that come into their world. They're like monsters. And the way that they fight these monsters is that they paint them of what, like, basically something harmless, so that the monster doesn't have enough power to eat anybody or hurt anybody in the city. And so basically he's like a defender of his city. He's pretty noble, okay? So basically one day, this is the interesting part that comes into the book, because I mean, it's already interesting, right? But one day Painter wakes up in Yumi's body in her world, and he they don't know why or what to do. Yumi kind of has like an inkling of like she knew that something might have been about to change, and spirits did like ask her to help them in some way. So he shifted into her body, but she is a spirit now in her world. They're trying to figure out like what the spirits need and how they can help the spirits so that they can get back into their respective worlds and their respective bodies. That's basically what the whole book is. Whenever they go to sleep, they switch bodies. So Yumi goes into Painter's world, and she's exposed to just what regular life is for a regular person. Like, you feed yourself, you bathe yourself, you go shopping, like little things. And she's learning to enjoy those things, and also she's learning that how limited she is in her own world and her own life. So that's one thing I do also love about Brandon Sanderson, is that there's all of this like fantasy stuff going on, and all of these like magical things going on, but like really it is rooted in like very philosophical, just overarching like what is life? What am I meant to do? What is my purpose? Like, there is some heavy-handed, like, gut punches in his book sometimes. Sometimes I'll just read a line and it'll just be like, damn, like I really feel that. So, highly recommend Yumi and the Nightmare Painter. And my last book that I want to talk about that I'm actually not finished with just yet is The Wings That Bind. I so this is the third book in the Blood Wings Academy series. I'm hesitant to recommend this book because my husband has started reading the series, and he didn't really care for it. For some reason, I am obsessed, and I just love these so much. And I just feel like reading different, and so this series is also a romantasy series. So I have read different romantasy series, and I feel like we've gotten to a point with these types of books where they are so similar in, the protagonist and, the world. And there's just a lot of things that are pulled from like the same bucket, it seems like sometimes. And it's like, okay, I know exactly where this is going. This series I very much enjoy because there's so many different magical elements that are being pulled into play, and you just don't even expect it. And there's a lot of surprises. There's a lot of character depth as well. You get really attached. This book, I'm so attached to Florence. Like, I am Florence. I am her. And so I am just so happy to have this book in my hands. It just came out. So yeah, so that'll be my last recommendation. And let me know if you've read any of these books, what your thoughts are about these books. So I want to thank you for watching, and stay tuned for the next book videos to come. Bye.